Hi guys, happy Tuesday. Christmas is 1 week today. I hope you can hear me. I was just doing wrapping. I don't know why we always leave it to the last minute. And then I cut my lip. You know when you put like tape on your lip to hold or to try and like fix it because it like folded and then it ripped my whole lip off. It's like this stuff. It's not an ad, but this heavy duty. It will take off your skin. Warning. Anyways, just hanging out down here with my dogs, trying to get a bunch of wrapping done, and thought I would pop on and quickly cover this day's lesson. And it's all about triggers. Now, when you hear the word trigger, I mean, if you've done any kind of self-work or self-help, read a self-help book, or went to counseling at least once in your life, I'm sure you're very familiar with the idea of being triggered. And so what I've learned over the years is kind of interesting around triggers. I think the first thing I will say is no one can trigger you, because it's this idea that somebody is doing something to you, and that they're the ones in control. They're doing something to you or hurting you. No, triggers happen, and I've been definitely guilty of saying like, oh, you triggered me, or that triggered me, or whatever. But no, I was activated. So for a long time I used the word being activated because it was like an ownership that this was something that was happening for me, that I don't want to say I was in control of in a way, but it eliminates the ownership off the other person because they're not doing anything on purpose, well, hopefully, that would harm you or hurt you in any way. So one, that's kind of the biggest thing I learned, is taking ownership that when triggers happen, for example, oh my gosh, example lost my head. It'll come back to me. But my point is definitely to just take ownership and know that it's happening for you. The second thing is knowing it's a gift. Now, it took me a long time to learn to appreciate and acknowledge what was happening for me and understand that there were triggers that were showing up, basically to offer me an opportunity to grow and heal and listen. So triggers are just the same idea that I've been talking about, our wounds. They're pain points that live within us, within our cell memory, within our hearts, within our energy field experiences that have happened. And when those experiences over the course of our life aren't dealt with, and we haven't unpacked them and explored and listened, and I shouldn't say that. We do that at different stages. I just think the self-love piece and the real deep compassion that eventually is necessary on the journey is kind of what helps to release and allow for peace to come in and to align with that light. So, I mean, we do work, but anyways, going back to what I was saying, is that, oh my gosh, my brain is so bad today. This is terrible. I should really stop it and start over, but I feel like it's just not going to help at this point. It's just an opportunity for us to listen to ourselves, and listen to what is stepping forward. So it's just inner wisdom. And this is the thing. They will keep happening and we will keep being triggered until we stop and realize the themes that are happening and like, okay, I keep being triggered by this one thing. What is it? Let's unpack that. Let's pull back the layers. Let's explore what part of that, what part of that is of me and what experience does that kind of go back to, and really kind of listening. Now, for a long time, I hated being triggered, because if you have ever experienced being fully activated by something, an external stimulus, maybe something somebody said, a movie, being out socially, and all of a sudden you're being fully triggered in a way, your body is activated. So the first thing that happens is usually the discomfort in the body, right? The nervous system is activated. So, for me, my heart races, I stop breathing, I get really anxious. Sometimes I get angry, especially if it's in conflict and in a fight with somebody. And all this is happening. And I used to hate it because I lived in a very hyper-vigilant state for so long that any trigger that happened, I was just frustrated. I was just up against the trigger. I was just angry that it was happening, angry that it was showing up. And it took a long time. And I can't remember. I think I was listening to probably one of Matt Kahn's videos, or maybe Andrew Martin. He always talks about it. I actually stopped and was like, okay, let's get to know this trigger. Let's get to know my triggers. And it was over the years, it actually started to show up as a way for me to really notice, okay, something's going on for me. I'm being triggered. And even if it wasn't consistent, even if there wasn't a theme, and even if it was just a random day and something was happening, you know, at work, it happens all the time, especially when I was working with children within, like, under the domestic violence umbrella. There would be something that would be happening with a client, and, you know, we're trained that it doesn't step forward and impact our work or whatever. But there was this part of me that was like, okay, I can feel something coming up. I can feel this, that there's an impact here. There's something that I'm not connecting with. There's something I'm not listening to. Okay. So I kind of shelf it for a little bit, and then I think about it. And so sometimes I would meditate or come home and just be alone, or go for a walk, or on my drive home, really contemplate and bring the trigger forward. Like, what was happening for me? What was I feeling in my body? When was the last time I felt that way? And just really listen to the inner wisdom. Because if anything I've learned over the course of my life, and mainly this year, is that our body hosts the wisdom to everything. It is the secrets. It's our answers. It's the key, all of that inside to all the things that we want and things that we hope for in life. So yeah, going externally and getting help with friends for advice, or family member, or counseling, or whatever, you know, your cohort or colleagues, all of that's great. But really, at the end of the day, if we can make the time to stop and listen inward, our body is so wise and it will give us all the information. And so as soon as I would do that, I would start getting flooded with these things, and this knowing, and this inner knowing, and this inner wisdom that would come up, and I'd be like, wow, okay, that's really interesting. And it allowed me to sit and process it and heal and move from it. So I encourage you today to kind of look at, where in your life are you being triggered? What are the themes within your relationship, especially intimate relationships, and especially relationships with your children? I can tell you so many of my triggers when it came to my daughter. And I think I talked about a while ago about the rejection piece, right? That was a part of my story. And there were things that she just couldn't do and show up for me. So that rejection wound in me was constantly being triggered every time I'd be like wanting to snuggle and do this. And she would just keep me at arm's length for months and months and months. And all of this was just triggering, and it triggers that rejection piece, right? And then it triggers the brain to start playing these messages of, you're not worthy, she doesn't love you, you're not good enough, you're a bad mom, and all of that. And then eventually it becomes a part of our story, and then we start, you know, all of that. Then it's just a huge cycle. So I encourage you to really look at your intimate partner relationships. What are some of the triggers that come up for you? Where do you get activated the most? Is it the same kind of, you know, topics? You know, is it always around money? Is money like a really tough subject? And are you constantly being activated when you're talking about it? Because the thing is, when we are activated and we are triggered and we are, you know, pushed into that, you know, fight or flight, and that kind of response to whatever experiences we're holding on to, it's not really helpful for anybody. It's not helpful for us. We can't really have conversations when we're in that state. We can't really be present. We're not really our true selves. So really, again, just all these layers and stuff, and it's just another kind of way to look at them. So check in with yourself. Where do you get activated? Is there certain things around work that are always activating you, the same things, regardless of what job you're in? Or maybe it's with certain people. Oh man, I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with my guides around that. People get put in our life, on our path, specifically to, I hate to say trigger us, but to have that, like, that response to feeling activated and triggered. It's just another opportunity to listen in and to know what's going on. If we are not triggered, if that doesn't happen, if everything outside in our world is peaceful and normal and just calm or whatever, the characters in our stories, the things at work, just children, everything like that, there would never be any opportunities for us to be like, whoa, what was that? Where's that come from? Let's be curious about that and explore that. Then we would never really have to heal. We would never really have to grow, and there would be no point to being a human. So check your triggers, check out what activates you. Really listen instead of going up against it and thinking, oh, I'm just angry, and associating all of, that inner turmoil with that. Be curious. Listen. Why? Why is this happening? Just an opportunity. So just another kind of key to really working on that shadow self, right? That's kind of the biggest way I've noticed over the years that it starts, or like that opportunity to work with the shadow self and those dark parts, is that you will keep being triggered by the same thing in different ways until you pay attention to it. We are the only ones who have the power to do any of this. We can't look to anybody else. So, power yourself. You have all the tools in you. I hope you have a beautiful day. And again, as a disclaimer, don't put this on your lip. Don't put it on your skin. Just be careful, okay? Happy wrapping. Enjoy the next however many days of quiet before the crazy weekend begins. I will see you tomorrow, and sending you guys lots of love.